Tonight, growing scandal. More military branches inquiring into nude photos of U.S. servicewomen shared secretly online. And tonight, the Secretary of Defense speaking out. Winter's revenge, weather whiplash with snow and plunging temperatures for tens of millions, and an even bigger threat on the way. Now hiring, a stronger than expected jobs report for the first full month of the Trump administration. But why are manufacturers struggling to fill jobs? Get unplugged, why companies are urging, even paying some employees to disconnect on vacation. Pardon the interruption, the hilarious viral moment when a dad realizes too late on live TV he should have locked the door. And real life Footloose, like the 80s classic, a town where dancing's been outlawed until now. Nightly News begins right now.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening to our viewers in the West. The nude photo scandal involving the sharing of compromising photos of U.S. servicewomen online has expanded beyond the Marine Corps tonight. Investigators discovering more postings and a virtual market for the photos. Top officials, including tonight the Defense Secretary, strongly condemning the behavior as the Army and Air Force open their own inquiries into just how far this scandal may reach. We get the latest from our Pentagon correspondent, Hans Nichols.
Tonight, Defense Secretary Jim Mattis weighing in on the scandal for the first time. We will not excuse or tolerate such behavior if we are to uphold our values and maintain our ability to defeat the enemy on the battlefield. With the Marine Corps' investigation accelerating after more nude photos of female service members emerged. New pictures on the website Anon-IB showing photos of women in uniform. The website's users encourage participants to find and post naked pictures of those servicewomen without their consent. The new photos are now forcing the Army and the Air Force to join the Navy and Marines to look deeper into the alleged inappropriate behavior. To what extent is this a cultural problem within the Marine Corps?
I'm not going to lay this off on anybody else, on the society or anybody else. I mean, okay, because this is our problem and I own it.
General Neller says some Marines are behind the times. Male Marines not giving their female counterparts their due.
Come on, guys. I mean, they just want to do their job. Let them do their job. And you do yours.
But the general's comments unlikely to quell the controversy.
Where was this task force over the last 4 years over which he allowed this issue to metastasize into the cancer that is now corroding the United States Marine Corps from within?
The number of victims still unknown. Some, like former Marine Erica Butner, who left last June, telling NBC News Tonight that the Marine Commandant should meet with female Marines who were victims. Hans Nichols, NBC News, the Pentagon.
Turning now to the weather whiplash many of us have been feeling this week after another warm spell. Winter's last gasp may be a doozy for tens of millions. Forecasters are watching the ingredients come together for a major snowstorm expected to sweep across the Northeast early next week from Washington, D.C. to Maine. The potential travel impact likely to be felt around the country. Al Roker will have the forecast for us, but first to NBC's Kristen Dahlgren with the latest.
In New York Central Park today, weather whiplash. For the second time this season, spring-like to snowy in the span of 24 hours.
I could do without it.
Up and down the East Coast, temperatures plummeting. From a high of 74 in Washington yesterday to 37 degrees this morning. Pittsburgh saw a swing of 25 degrees, and Philly dropped 35. More than 2,000 flights delayed nationwide. Accidents in Pennsylvania shutting the interstate in both directions. In Connecticut, rescue crews pulled a Great Dane from an icy river after it slipped down a snowy bank. It's the latest hit in a week of wild weather. On Mount Washington, gusts topped 100 miles per hour. And this 4-year-old got more than she bargained for when the front door caught in a gust. This weekend, parts of the Northeast could see record low temperatures, while millions are now bracing for another blow. A nor'easter forecast to hit Monday night.
It's supposed to snow and we're all very stressed out about it.
It's still too soon to say what next week will bring. Some early models predicting accumulation measured in feet. Either way, winter's last blast already leaving its mark.
So with the snow now on the ground, as well as high wind warnings now across the region and temperatures continuing to plummet, officials are warning about some very dangerous driving conditions overnight, Lester.
All right, Kristen Dahlgren, thank you. We're also tracking that new threat. Kristen mentioned the storm taking aim early next week. Al Roker is watching that all for us. Al, what do you got?
Lester, the snow's just about gone, but cold air coming in. It's going to feel like 4 below tonight in Rochester, 12 in D.C., -3 in Boston. Highs tomorrow are going to be anywhere from 10 to 15 degrees below average from Minneapolis down to Raleigh. And then overnight lows tomorrow night on Sunday, we're looking 14 below in Bar Harbor, 9 above in New York, 18 in Baltimore. Cold air in place. And with that, a very interesting situation developing Monday, a low pressure system developing along the southeastern Atlantic coast. As the day wears on Tuesday, snow from Portland, New York, Philly, D.C. And as we get into the evening hours, the snow intensifies, heavier. We are looking for anywhere from Portland all the way down to Washington. Heavy snow. Still too early to give you accumulations, Lester, but it looks very, very interesting for a major snowstorm on Tuesday.
All right, Al Roker, thanks very much. The new jobs report is out for the first full month of the Trump administration, and it's stronger than expected. The economy adding 235,000 jobs last month, and the unemployment rate ticking down to 4.7%. The White House touted the numbers today, though during the campaign, Mr. Trump called the jobs reports phony. He also campaigned on a promise to bring back manufacturing. But across the country, many companies have a new concern. NBC's Tom Costello has more.
In Avon, Massachusetts, the Help Wanted sign is out. High-paying jobs for those with the right skills. Nearly 80 workers at AccuRounds design and cut precision military, semiconductor, and medical components. Today, Terrell Shivers was cutting an aircraft part.
Manufacturing today is more about high precision, and it's about speed. The environments are more clean.
They're called middle-skilled jobs, requiring some vocational training and computer skills, but not a college degree. According to a recent study, more than half of all jobs require middle skills. Yet only about 40% of the country's workers are trained properly. The pay at AccuRounds starts at $18 an hour and can climb well past $30 an hour. But the CEO says they can't find enough qualified employees to grow.
We'd love to hire people with experience, but there just are no people with experience walking the streets. Anybody that's talented and has that technical experience already has a job.
Today's unemployment rate of 4.7% is considered near full employment. The White House tweeted out great news, even though before taking office, President Trump questioned strong jobs numbers under President Obama.
It's a statistic that's full of nonsense.
Today, a different take.
They may have been phony in the past, but it's very real now.
This economy is a fast-moving economy. Whether or not Donald Trump were president, we'd probably see similar numbers.
Back in Massachusetts, AccuRounds is hosting field trips for high schoolers, even fourth graders, hoping to foster the workforce of the future. Tom Costello, NBC News, Avon, Massachusetts.
Now to President Trump today, repeatedly brushing off questions about his wiretapping claims against former President Obama, as the feds face a bipartisan call to produce any evidence, if it exists, to back that up. Also today, the White House on defense again over former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. We get more from NBC's Peter Alexander.
Today, nearly a full week after his explosive accusation that President Obama tapped his phones, President Trump still ignoring calls to provide any proof. The House Intelligence Committee, Republicans and Democrats asking the Department of Justice and FBI if they have any evidence to back up the president's claim.
We're going to put to rest this bogus claim from the president that he was illegally wiretapped by his predecessor.
It comes as the entire Senate Intelligence Committee has been granted access to the most sensitive materials from the investigation into Russian interference in the election, an unprecedented move. Tonight, the White House is also in damage control, trying to explain why former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn was attending secret intelligence briefings with then-candidate Trump while he was being paid as a foreign agent, lobbying to benefit the Turkish government. Federal records obtained by NBC News show Flynn received more than $500,000 for 3 months of work that ended the day after the election. But he failed to register as a foreign agent as required by law until just a few days ago. The White House today defended its betting.
Look, I think we trust people to fill out the appropriate forms that they need to. And in this case, and the president acted accordingly back in the thing, and he made the right call then.
Flynn was fired last month not for failing to file the proper paperwork, but for misleading the vice president about his contacts with the Russian ambassador. Even some Republicans are raising flags.
Makes you wonder if there's been an adequate background check that's been done and how thorough it might have been. I do think that's something that we should take a look at.
Tonight, a top White House official dismissed the Flynn story, telling me it is a, quote, ridiculous narrative, and said, in fact, their focus remains on replacing Obamacare, with the president scheduled to travel next week to make the case to Americans himself. Lester?
Peter Alexander at the White House, thank you. There were protests in South Korea today after the president was forced out following a stunning corruption scandal. The shakeup is happening right now as North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un is threatening the region, and Secretary of State Rex Tillerson is set to make his first trip to Asia. Here's NBC's Richard Engel.
Tonight in South Korea, protesters taking to the streets, jostling buses, some injured in violent demonstrations after a stunning fall from grace. South Korea's first woman president forced out of office by the country's constitutional court following a bizarre corruption scandal. Prosecutors have claimed that this woman, a longtime friend of President Park Geun-hye, used that connection to shake down companies and top executives for millions of dollars, including the head of Samsung, even paying for a horse for her daughter. All of that happening in a region that is already moving in dangerous directions, with North Korea launching repeated missile tests in violation of UN resolutions, and the U.S. responding by initiating the deployment of a missile defense system in South Korea.
Certainly, we live in very difficult times, and if the North Koreans react militarily to some of these moves, well, we could be in a whole new world.
And in that new world, the U.S. may very well miss President Park, who may have been corrupt, but was a staunch ally to the U.S. Secretary of State Tillerson heads into this storm on his first trip to Asia next week, facing a South Korea that could become closer to China and more accommodating to North Korea, a potential realignment of one of the U.S.'s closest allies in Asia. Lester?
Richard Engel, thank you. And back here at home, police tonight are looking for a group of bikers who savagely beat a driver in a terrifying incident of road rage. The attack caught on camera along a busy stretch of California freeway. And this incident is hardly an isolated one. NBC's Miguel Almaguer has the latest.
The Highway Patrol calls them a gang on wheels, a pack of unruly dirt bikers, no license plates, popping wheelies, speeding down San Francisco's 101 freeway during rush hour.
There are about 20 motorcycles involved, yelling at motorists.
Police got the call for help after an incident involving this white sedan. When the driver gets out, he's surrounded by up to 15 men who beat him. The melee so vicious, other motorists stopped to help, but asked not to be identified.
His leg was broken, his face was bloodied, he had road rash on his arms, and he was really in agony.
In 2013, there was this notorious altercation in New York, a swarm of bikers attacking a family inside an SUV. Police say it can be difficult to track down the bandits in situations like these.
Most of the times, no plates of any kind on the bikes. A lot of times, no helmets and very little identifying clothing to pinpoint who's who.
Rogue packs of bikers often film themselves, taking incredible risks. Tonight in San Francisco, the driver is recovering. No arrests, as the men in the mob are nowhere to be found. Miguel Almaguer, NBC News, Los Angeles.
And still ahead here tonight, the great disconnect, extreme measures and big incentives to get employees to leave their work in the office. Also, when serious turned hilarious, the unplanned moment today on live TV. And trust us, you don't want to miss this. Just as families across the country are gearing up for spring break, a reminder of the value of truly unplugging yourself from the stresses of work. What if your boss actually encouraged you to disconnect and relax on vacation? Our Gabe Gutierrez tells us about some companies where that dream is a reality.
Tonight, Tyler Merritt is checking out.
Very excited. First time to Europe.
visiting my roommate. It's going to be awesome.
He's boarding a flight to Europe for a long-awaited vacation. No work emails allowed. It's an order from his boss, Angie Maddox of Seed Factory Branding in Atlanta.
Why do you think so many people have a hard time disconnecting?
I think it's this always on pressure that you are going to miss some information. We think that the more disconnected you are, the more creative you'll be.
A new study finds 45% of U.S. employees regularly answer emails outside of work hours.
Companies are increasingly aware of how burned out employees are, and they should be. I mean, 2 in 5 of us are burned out.
So a tech company, Olark Live Chat, offers a $1,000 bonus to employees who take at least 5 days of vacation without checking email, and they're encouraged to share photos when they return. A perk Carl Polowitz has taken advantage of 4 times.
Employees should feel comfortable taking time away from work and realize that even if they're gone, things will still carry on without them.
But leave it to the French to pass a law requiring big companies to limit emails after hours.
What happens when you come back and you have this mountain of email waiting for you? What are you going to do then?
Got it already set to delete them all.
Now that's something to look forward to. Gabe Gutierrez, NBC News, Atlanta.
When we come back, history uncovered the ancient treasure they found in a forgotten patch of land. Back now with that moment that played out on live TV that has people around the world cracking up. And any parent can relate, especially if you work from home. It started with an expert talking about some serious news of the day when he got some unexpected visitors. NBC's Ann Thompson has the play-by-play.
BBC World News is the epitome of British reserve. Serious, straight-laced, until this interview about the upheaval in South Korea with political scientist Robert Kelly.
Scandals happen all the time.
Cue the little one checking in on dad. Suddenly, the anchor's stiff upper lip wavers.
I think one of your children has just walked in. I mean, shifting sands in the region. Do you think relations with the North may change?
Kelly fends off the first intruder, but wait, there's more.
I would be surprised if they do.
Not to worry, help is on the way.
My apologies.
The kids are corralled, so dad can get back to work now, if the walker cooperates. In a statement, the BBC said, "We're really grateful to Professor Kelly for his professionalism. This just goes to show that live broadcasting isn't always child's play, especially when you're working from home." Ann Thompson, NBC News.
Is that priceless or what? Archaeologists are saying it may be one of the most significant discoveries in years. A huge statue has been unearthed on a vacant piece of land in a Cairo neighborhood. They say it's at least 3,000 years old. It could be a statue of Pharaoh Ramses II, one of the most famous rulers of ancient Egypt. They hope to finish excavating the 26-foot-tall statue next week. When we come back, the big drama in a small town fighting over its own version of Footloose. Finally tonight, a big dispute in a small town in Oklahoma has been resolved. At issue, would people finally get their wish to simply go dancing? More than 3 decades later, they found themselves in their own version of the movie Footloose. Kevin Tibbles tonight on how it ended.
If you've never been, Henrietta, Oklahoma is a quiet town. Problem is, some say it's been too quiet.
They banned dancing within 500 feet of a church or a school.
That's Mayor Jennifer Clayson explaining a 40-year-old law passed when some thought dancing could lead one's feet down a troubled path.
Jump back. Now I gotta cut loose.
Just like in the movie Footloose, about another Oklahoma town where dancing was banned, Henrietta yearned for its own Kevin Bacon. Then local outlaw and antique shop owner Joni Isabella rode into town wanting to hold a dance in the empty room upstairs from the store. Do you feel like Jesse James?
You know, a little bit.
But she was shot down by the city ordinance. Her dance hall was an illegal 300 feet from a church. So at a raucous city council meeting, the law was challenged. And Mayor Clayson delivered the verdict.
Dancing is legal in Henrietta, Oklahoma.
We get to dance anywhere, anytime we want to.
It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be good for the community. Some folks got footloose right then and there.
It even makes you feel young.
So after years of being on the wrong side of the law, Henrietta's finally put its right foot forward and said,
Let's dance!
We are going to cut loose. We are going to get down with Elvis.
And as the big night arrived, indeed Elvis was in the house, getting Joni and her husband up on their feet. A little late in coming, but after all these years, hitting the dance floor without worrying about hearing Jailhouse Rock at the end of the night. Kevin Tibbles, NBC News, Henrietta, Oklahoma.
And that is going to do it for us on a Friday night. A quick reminder, we spring ahead an hour this weekend. Don't forget to turn your clocks on Saturday night before you go to bed. I'm Lester Holt. For all of us at NBC News, thank you for watching, and good night. Have a good weekend, too.